They say some stories are meant to be forgotten, buried deep beneath the kind of memories that don't fade, they rot. But every now and then, someone decides to speak. Not for attention, not for forgiveness, just to get the weight off their chest before it drags them under. Tonight's story isn't from a book or a movie or some stranger on the internet. It came from a real person, a man who carried a secret for nearly a lifetime. A secret about death and what waits on the other side when you refuse to stay there. You're listening to NightLore, where every whisper hides a truth you were never meant to hear. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't stop listening. I never thought much about my great-grandfather when I was younger. He was the kind of man who seemed carved out of stone quiet, unshakable, and impossibly strong in that old-world way. He had lived through a war, raised 4 kids on his own after his wife died, and ran a small-town diner until arthritis finally took his grip. He didn't talk much, but when he did, every word carried the weight of someone who had seen the world end more than once. I knew he had served as a medic during the war, but that was all I knew. Most of his stories stayed locked away, gathering dust in the corners of his mind. Sometimes he joked about trading cigarettes for coffee or patching up soldiers who shot themselves in the foot just to get sent home. But he never ever talked about the darker things. Until that night. It was late past midnight. The house was silent, except for the old refrigerator humming in the kitchen and the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I was visiting him for the weekend. We were sitting at the table under a dim yellow light. He poured himself a whiskey and handed me a Coke the same way he always did, like it was our little secret. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then out of nowhere, he spoke. "You ever wonder why some things stick with you, boy?" He asked, his voice low and gravelly. I blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" He took a slow sip of whiskey and stared into the glass. "The war," he said, "I saw a lot. Fixed up a lot of people. Buried more than my share. But there's one man I can't forget." I didn't interrupt. I just listened. His tone was different, heavy, like something had finally cracked inside him. "Private Andrew Mallory," he said. "Winter of '44. We were stationed at a field hospital just behind the front lines. Cold enough to kill you if you stopped moving too long. The air smelled like mud, blood, and smoke. The hospital wasn't much of one, just a few tents and a lot of desperation." He took another drink. "That's where I met him. They brought him in one night, 2 boys carrying him on a stretcher. Shrapnel wound to the gut. Bad one. We tried to save him, but..." His voice faltered. "He died on the table. I was holding his hand when it happened. I can still remember the way his fingers went slack." He paused, staring at the table. He was just a kid, scared, alone, dying in the middle of a frozen hell. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked, "What happened after that?" "The usual," he said. "We cleaned him up, tagged him, and sent him to the morgue tent. Then we moved on. Too many others needed help. There was no time to mourn." He leaned back and exhaled, eyes distant. But the next morning, I saw him again. I frowned. "Saw who, Mallory?" he said softly. "Standing there. Alive." I stared at him. He wasn't joking. He was fine, my great-grandfather continued. No wounds, no scars, nothing. Just standing there like nothing had happened. I tried to speak, but no words came out. "I thought I'd lost my mind," he said. I went over to him, half expecting him to vanish. But he didn't. He was solid, real, breathing. The others thought we'd tagged the wrong body, but I knew better. What did he say? I whispered. Not much. He said he didn't remember anything after the explosion. The doctors cleared him, and command sent him back to the front. Just like that. He gave a bitter laugh. Just like that. If he could stand, he could fight. That was all that mattered. I could feel the air in the room grow colder. He looked at me with tired eyes. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Then a few weeks later, they brought him back again. He swallowed hard, stepped on a mine this time, lost his leg. Half his chest was gone. We did everything we could. He died again. Same way, on the table, in my hands. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. He stared into his glass. Next morning he was back. I froze. Sitting on one of the cots, he said, perfectly fine, not a scratch on him. But this time, there was something in his eyes. Fear. Real soul-deep fear. What did he say? I asked. He looked at me and whispered, "It happened again, didn't it?" My great-grandfather's voice broke slightly. They sent him back to fight again. Orders were orders. But I couldn't get that look out of my head. That kind of terror. It wasn't the fear of dying. It was fear of coming back. He fell silent after that. When I visited the next day, he was gone, hospitalized after a heart attack. I rushed to see him. He looked fragile pale, like the life was slowly draining from him. But when he saw me, he smiled weakly. "Didn't think you'd get rid of me that easy, huh?" he rasped. "Grandpa, you need to rest." He shook his head. "No, I need to finish the story." I sat down, heart pounding. He looked up at the ceiling. After Mallory came back the second time, I couldn't let it go. It haunted me. I thought it was a mix-up, a mistake. But deep down, I knew better. Weeks passed. Then they brought him in again. I swallowed. How he was barely alive. Burns all over. Shrapnel everywhere. But somehow, he didn't die. He hung on. I was the one who checked his pulse. I saw it. His voice lowered. But there was something wrong. The wounds weren't healing. There was something seeping out of him. Black, like tar. It moved. I felt my stomach turn. He saw me watching, my great-grandfather said. He reached out, barely able to speak. "You have to end it," he whispered. "Please, don't let it take me again." My grandfather's voice shook. I told him I couldn't. I was a medic. I saved lives. But he kept begging. He said it was inside him spreading. He said he could feel it eating through his veins. He closed his eyes. So I did what he asked. My heart dropped. "You killed him?" He nodded slowly. I covered his mouth and nose until he stopped breathing. It was mercy. At least that's what I told myself. He was trembling now. But when he died, that black liquid, it turned to vapor. Before I could move, it burst into the air. I must have breathed it in. He looked at me, then eyes hollow. That was my first time. He coughed weakly. Since then, I've been careful. I don't know how many chances I have left. But that heart attack, that was the second. I sat there frozen. He pulled up his sleeve. The skin near his wrist was dark oily, like it was alive. "It got to me," he said softly. "Whatever was in Mallory. Passed to me." I shook my head. "There has to be a way, something you can do." He gave a faint smile. "No, son. It's spreading. I can feel it. I won't let it take me again. I can't." He reached for my hand, gripping it tightly. "Take care of your mother," he whispered, "and your siblings." Before I could say another word, he let go. I didn't see him again after that night. Weeks later, I was sitting in the old diner he used to run. The waitress brought me 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. When I looked up, he was sitting across from me. He looked tired, his eyes sunken, but there was no mistaking him. He raised his cup slightly like a toast. "Don't panic, son," he said. "You wanted to know what happened the 3rd time Mallory came back." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. He smiled faintly. "They said I died, didn't they?" "Well, I did. That's the problem. It's my 2nd time now." He leaned forward. And this is when things change. I blinked, and for just a moment, the light flickered. When it came back, he was gone. The cup across from me was still steaming. And on the side of my own cup was a small dark fingerprint. Oily, black, still wet. If you're still here, you've heard it all. The confession, the fear, the thing that shouldn't have lived but did. Some say stories like this are just metaphors, ways for old soldiers to make sense of the things they've seen. Others swear it's something darker, something that spreads. Maybe it's just guilt. Maybe it's something else, something that finds a way to crawl from one soul to the next. Whatever it is, I keep thinking about that last part, the fingerprint on the cup, black, oily, still wet. And now every night before I sleep, I check my hands, just to make sure it hasn't found me too. This was NightLore. If you're brave enough, come back tomorrow night. We have more stories to tell. Sweet dreams, if you can still have them.